the Tyreek Hill contract is not aging well. On top of the fact that it was never $30 million a year, and it was always fake and phony and fugazi, $25 million a year. He was sliding down the stack. He had been leapfrogged by Amon-Ra St. Brown, by A.J. Brown. That was the one that got his attention because that's the guy who got big contract 2 years ago upon being traded. It was apples to apples, 3 years left on his deal. Hey, I'm in the same boat. A.J. Brown gets a new deal at 32, and here I am at 25. Something's wrong with this picture. And then Jalen Waddle, his teammate, passes him by at 28.25 when Tyreek is at effectively 25. That's an issue, and now the Justin
Jefferson
game.
That is end game. When that happened right there, that was like the hell with the rest of the market or any of that. Like, that's just not going to fly. At this point of his career, right, where he's at, and then, of course, his importance to the team like we talked about, and really he's the focal point of the team. And the Dolphins,
best player.
Yeah, the Dolphins are who they are right now on the offensive side of the ball because of number 10. Right? I mean, everything they are and what we watch and how excited we are to watch them. Yeah, there's a lot of good players, but it all starts from him, and he opens up the field for everybody else. So his worth is arguably still the greatest out of any non-quarterback in football right now that I would argue that over anybody. I think it's up there with the Michael Parsons, and I think it might even be greater than Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase where it stands right now this second.
There was already an issue when the season ended. He has 1,799 receiving yards, would have had 2,000 quite possibly, but for that combination hip drop, horse collar tackle on the Monday night against Tennessee.
Yeah, that's right.
He knows his value. He knows he's 30. And the A.J. Brown took it to a higher level. Jalen Waddle takes it to a higher level. And I think Justin Jefferson now sets the bar that he's going to try to catch. It's not going to be easy, but it's obviously a thing. It's undoubtedly a thing. We reported last week that the effort has been there since the end of the 2023 season. Drew Rosenhaus appearing last night with Miami sportscaster Josh Moser. Here is Rosenhaus saying without saying that the time has come to pay Tyreek Hill.
Let's just say it's safe to acknowledge that I've been in touch with Chris Greer and Brandon Shore of the Dolphins. I certainly have a fluid line of communication with them, and I've shared with them how Tyreek feels. And I'll also reiterate that Tyreek has said that he would love to finish his career here with the Dolphins. So without getting into any more specifics, the Dolphins know how we feel.
Let's just put it this way. There are no more specifics that you need to get into if Tyreek Hill is perfectly happy with his contract. There's nothing to talk about. Hey, Tyreek, everything okay? Everything's fine. Okay, I can't get into any more specifics than that. No, I mean, he basically said it. He wants a new contract. And now the Dolphins, who just gave $28.25 million per year to Jalen Waddle, and have to figure out what the hell they're going to do with Tua Tagovailoa, or the guy who is impersonating Tua Tagovailoa. We're still not 100% sure based upon the video we saw yesterday. Now they got to take care of Tyreek Hill.
Yeah.
Which, Chris, I think if they do this, and it's not going to be easy to get the $35 million in new money when you got that $45 million fugazi final year.
Yeah.
That's the old money. See, this is the problem of having fake, phony final years in contracts. When it's time to do the new money analysis, that fake, phony figure doesn't go away. So they're going to have to dig deep to get Tyreek Hill to where he wants to be. And I think that makes it more likely that Tua isn't going to get what he wants, and he's going to have to choose between best offer the Dolphins make before week 1 and $23.1 million under the last year of his rookie contract.
Yeah, or like the avenue we talked about, do they just throw something on for the 1 year to make him feel good for this year, right? Like we saw with Saquon Barkley or Josh Jacobs last year, where they just go, hey, you don't like this long-term deal, but here's something just to spruce it up for this year, make you feel a little bit better, and we'll continue to work and talk on the deal, right? But yeah, as I've stated many times, I certainly wouldn't throw out a long-term big money contract to Tua yet. I'd want to see a little bit more. Now, with Tyreek Hill, negative Ghost Rider, I would be willing to throw out whatever it takes to throw out there. I mean, of course he's not going to accept being second in the wide receiver room and pay when we all know who the man is in the wide receiver room. But the Dolphins, like we kind of talk about with the Cowboys, they get a lot of headaches coming down the tracks here with a lot of guys. We discussed it last week. I mean, man, do they got some balancing of the checkbook and people who are going to ask for money and older guys who are already getting money. And wow, do they got a lot going on here. But this one's a no-brainer because the Miami Dolphins and Mike McDaniel and who they are and what we think of them right now are not them without Tyreek Hill. I mean, it's plain and simple. I mean, you play the Miami Dolphins, all a defensive coordinator talks about is Tyreek Hill, Tyreek Hill, Tyreek Hill. Even the offensive coordinator on the other team talks about, hey, they got Tyreek Hill over there. We got to be on our game today because we got to score points. We're going to have to keep up with them. He is a total game changer. I think he is the biggest game changer in the league right now. And then you couple that with the offense and the motions, right, Mike? And all they do there and all the stress it puts on. And I'll just say it to you, like, hey, let's put it plain. If you had one guy to throw a go route to in the NFL right now, it's Tyreek Hill. If there was one guy I would want to give a reverse to maybe score a touchdown in the NFL right now, it would be Tyreek Hill. If there was one guy I'd want to put back to return a kick in the new kick return thing right now, who would be the first pick? Tyreek Hill. So to me, it's like, duh. They got to pay him now. They're stuck, and it's just about how many years and how they finagle the whole deal altogether, Mike, in my opinion.
Hey, look, the Chiefs have won the last 2 Super Bowls without him. Do they win the first one without him? I don't think so. He makes that catch on jet chip wasp. The desperation third down play when they were down 10 points with 7 minutes left in the Super Bowl. So he has tremendous value. He continues to be one of the best non-quarterbacks in the NFL and better than plenty of quarterbacks.
And to that point, Mike, right? Because I hear people say that all the time. Well, yeah, that's okay. You can live without Tyreek Hill. If you got Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, okay, well, we don't got that in Miami right now. We don't got that. Like, that's a rare thing. Teams like the Chiefs can go, wait, we might not need the superstar guy because our guy is so good, he can make up for those plays that we don't get from Tyreek Hill. But there's we know. I mean, Mahomes is one of one. There's only a few guys in football that I think you'd feel good about that with or making that type of move. And I wouldn't feel that way with Miami and Tua in that situation.
To the extent that there are winners and losers from the Jefferson deal, obviously the winner is Jefferson because he's got his contract. Although it wasn't the numbers that maybe it could have been, that opens the door for others to be pondered in that regard. And let's just summarize very quickly. I think Jamar Chase and the Bengals should be winners out of this because this should allow them to get a deal done fairly quickly if Mike Brown is willing to write the check. Are we on the same page with that? They both win.
Yes, agreed. Win. I mean, the Bengals got to be like, oh, thank God it's only 35. And Jamar Chase can go, hey, Bengals, I think we can tie that or even one up it a little bit if you want to. So, yeah, I would think both are very pleased.
Tyreek Hill wins, Dolphins lose. But the Dolphins had already kind of lost. They just now have their loss crystallized. And within that loss is kind of a win because if Justin Jefferson had gotten 37, 38 million a year, it would have been harder to get Tyreek. So the Dolphins don't love this position. They were already in it anyway. If anything, if you want to glass half full it, hey, it could have been worse with Jefferson, which would have made it harder for us. So it looks like a loss, but there's a win hidden in there for the Dolphins.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think this was inevitable anyways, right? This was going to happen. It didn't matter what this deal, what it was. I mean, it's better that it wasn't, some crazy number like 30 million to your point, but yeah, I think the writing was on the wall here when A.J. Brown and Waddle got the deal that they were going to have to give Tyreek something, right? But the Miami football team, the Dolphins in general, though, I know we talked about it last week, but I just look at it right now and go, wow, I mean, holy crap. I mean, I'm going to lay it out there for everybody once again. I mean, Teron Armstead on his last leg, literally, paying 2 receivers right now, top 5 at the position in the NFL. And probably when it's all done, you're going to have like number 1 and number 3 here with Tyreek or something like that, right? There's the Tua situation. Javon Holland's going to want to be paid like the top safety in football, which he should be. He is that way, right? Jalen Phillips, a great pass rusher, the Achilles tear. He's the best defensive player in their team. And so he's young, but he's coming off that. You got Bradley Chubb, who's a little older, coming off an injury and being paid a ton of money too. They're paying Jalen Ramsey, right? I feel like I'm missing somebody else. But either way, I mean, they got some things to shuffle around there in Miami for sure.
Well, and their cap situation prevented them from even tagging Christian Wilkins and trading him. They were in no position to compete to keep him, and that sent shockwaves really through Miami because it's like, hey, you get a great young player. The idea is you find a way to keep him around, and they just weren't able to do it, and it's only going to get harder. All right, Tua, I think, beyond the fact that he might have won a season championship on The Biggest Loser based upon how much weight that he shed this offseason, I think he's the biggest loser in all of this because I think it makes it more likely he doesn't get what he wants.
Yes.
He'll have to take what they can give. He has to forget about what he wants. If he wants 50, that ain't happening. Like I said yesterday and mentioned briefly earlier, they're going to make a final offer at some point before week 1, and he's just going to have to decide, do I take that? Or do I play under the terms of my rookie deal with that possibility? And I don't know how big of a possibility it is that they just say, here's some free money for 2020.
Yeah, I know.
I don't know that Stephen Ross will authorize that. He'll present it as binary. Here's our terms on a long-term deal. If you don't take that, you're playing for 23-1, and we'll revisit it after the season.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, for the sake, excuse me, of the segment, yeah, I mean, a loser as well. I would think Tua is a loser in this, right? It just, and again, I think this was already in the works or whatever else, but I think what this does is just puts the writing on the wall. I think it just makes it like, nope, you're definitely not getting 52 million. That's not happening. So now let's talk and see where things are at. And I give the Dolphins credit. Again, we've been talking about this for a few years, right? Why did it become just because I'm up, I'm supposed to get a new contract? That never worked like that.
Not
ever.
just a new contract.
I get to update
the richest contract in the history of the sport.
Right. I'm in the top 10 or 12-ish range, so I get the richest one now. Like, where did that become a thing? Right. It's just
18. I saw your rankings. You got him at 18.
Right.
So.
Right. Exactly. So
you don't want to make him the highest paid quarterback in football.
No,
that's for damn
you don't. But hey, you could be happy you got him, and hopefully he can be realistic to know his worth too. Yeah, he's got worth. He's doing a lot of good things. We know that. But damn, we know the issues. We discussed that. Cold weather, playoffs, power throws. They're not all that great, right? And a lot of his success is because of those two guys we talked about at receiver. And hey, I throw a 4-yard pass here, and that guy runs 75 yards, and everyone goes, look, my average yard completion's like as good as anybody in football. Look at me. And it's like, well, yeah, you threw it 4 yards. He ran 75. So yeah, you got a 79-yard completion there on your average. Great. It doesn't mean you're special because of that. And I think that's where, the Dolphins are reeling it in a little bit.
In a weird sort of way, the Dolphins are winners in all of this because it might allow them to break this Tua Tagovailoa fever dream they've been caught in. And the fans, there's a cluster of fans.
Yeah, right.
And the organization may feel like we got to give the fans what they want. We have to get them to show up for games. We have to get them to buy jerseys and expensive food and all the other revenue streams. And we can't upset them if they want Tua. This might be a situation where the circumstances just keep them from extending Tua, and they get another year to just kind of see. And if Tua struggles this year, then, okay, we move on while we still have Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, and we can find a different quarterback who can maybe do, with the assistance of Mike McDaniel, a lot more than what Tua was able to do. And I mean, we're just trying to be realistic about this.
Yes, right.
There are real concerns about whether or not there's a ceiling that Tua has hit, that Mike McDaniel has made him look better than maybe he is.
Right.
And the goal of winning a Super Bowl is to find a way to power through that ceiling. And if it's just not going to happen, you got to look elsewhere. It's back to the whole thing of every part gets replaced at some point. And the question is, when do you declare the part to be not as good as another part that I can put in the machine?
Yeah, well, I mean, they're stuck in a situation that, was similar before. Ding, ding, ding. His name was Brian Flores. He went 10-6 2 years in a row, but he told the organization, I don't think we can go to a Super Bowl or win tough games late in December or January with Tua as our quarterback. And they said, what? You're fired. Get out of here. We're going to find somebody that can state something differently. I know it wasn't quite that way.
That was after they tried to get Deshaun Watson.
Yes, right.
I mean, they spent a whole year trying to get Deshaun Watson.
Right.
And once that window finally closed, Tua got better. Tua had that hanging over him. I mean, it's amazing he even wants to be with the Dolphins. Helping the matter, I think, is having Mike McDaniel there as the head coach. I don't think he would have wanted to stay if Brian Flores had, because it had just gotten to the point where it was dysfunctional.
Yeah.
And it was unworkable. And I don't think either guy wanted the other.
No, I don't think so either. You're right. But either way, my point was that just the question has been there for a while. And Flores saw the future a little bit to go, I'm not sure. I just came from New England with this guy number 12, and I know what bad weather, end of the year, winning Super Bowl quarterback looks like, and I'm not sure this is what it looks like, okay? And that's where, so here's a question I pose to you, right? I mean, Tua's going to put up good stats this year. We know that. That's a guarantee, right? And that's part of the problem here. And that's why, he has this faction of the fan base that's like, look, he led the league in passing yards and all of that. So he's got numbers to back him up, stats to back him up. He's going to have that again this year. Okay? So let's just say like he has a similar year last year, Mike, right? Whereas last year, where he has a great year, he's one or two or three leaders in passing yards, right? He's up there in all the QB metrics, but they lose in the wild card game again, right? Or they barely miss out in the playoffs or something like that. What would you do? What do they do? Where does that go right there? What do you think is going to happen if that kind of plays out that way?
I don't know, because I was paying attention to direction, so I'll be completely candid. Are you saying if they get to where they've been, or if they get
exactly
past it?
No, get to where they've been? They get to the playoffs again, but he led the NFL in passing yards, and he's up there.
And you go
one
and done again. I think one and done means we got to go find someone else who can take us farther.
Right. I think so.
Now,
too.
I don't know that the Tua fans will go with that, because they'll cite the statistics, and we've spent the money
That's
on
what
his
I was
jersey.
saying. Right.
We like him, and he's a nice guy, and we'd like to adopt him, and
that's right.
like to hang out with him. I want to be his friend. I mean, this is what makes it difficult for us. He's a nice guy. He's a great guy, but there are plenty of great guys out there who aren't going to be franchise quarterbacks. And at some point, who you are and how likable you are has to take a back seat to, are you getting it done at a sufficient level? If you're content with having a good regular season and flaming out in the first round of the playoffs, so be it. But I feel like Stephen Ross isn't in that space. We'll find out. And maybe the best case scenario for the Dolphins is to have another year to see what happens. Clearly, he's their guy this year. They're not going to supplant him for somebody else on the roster. But after this year, then they can make a decision longer term or short term, as the case may be. Whatever it may be, get through this year and then figure out what to do.
Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.